We polled on remdesivir, which cost, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000. It was rushed through. It never had really safety trials, so to speak, and the efficacy was never that high. But of the people who said they had a person die in the hospital of COVID, people thought that hospital protocols were complicit, 47% to 36%. So America knows it. It's like these pharmaceutical companies kill people. And one of the reasons I think the beginning of the year felt so successful is because the executive orders were good and they were bold, but also because Elon was laying out a lot of air cover. And what happens is, in my opinion, if you throw out enough positive stuff, I hate to say the word vibe, but the vibe is such that people will overlook any of the small failings. So take that Rob Reiner tweet. If he had done that in February, everybody would have been like, I don't care. Look at all the people in Washington, D.C. trying to get criminal defense attorneys. You know, like that's what would have happened. But now it's like, why did he tweet that? This is terrible. Why are the wheels falling off? And so the problem is that they got rid of Doge like on purpose. And I don't know if it was a Trump decision or that Elon freaked out about the way that Congress was treating him. But I very much think that the one big beautiful bill, I think, was a Republican, like Trump knows they can't get anything through. He needs legislation. He can't write the bill himself. It was probably being written 4 years ago, just waiting for Republicans to get back into office, right? And it's all these favors and gimme dats and back scratching. And so that was a Republican DC piece of garbage. And I think that they did as much as they could to make it look like Trump stuff, but it certainly was never going to have any of the Doge thing in it. And I think Elon freaked out and they're like, okay, fine, screw you. Get away from it. We don't need you. And I also think probably right out of the gate, the Israel backers for Trump were very, very, same thing. They've been waiting for 4 years. We need action. We need action now. All of a sudden, the enrichment is too high. The enrichment's too high. And I think that Trump told Bibi, probably behind the scenes, I'm just guessing, to back off. Like, dude, pump the brakes a little bit. I need the Republican bill through. And then what happened? The second the writing was on the wall, the CR got kicked, and it looked like the one big beautiful bill was going to pass, then it's time to bomb Iran. So you have all of these special interests and all of their monetary things and all their punch lists, and there was never a punch list for the American people. There just wasn't. I mean, like the executive orders were it, and there aren't any anymore. And so what's the plan? So the Republican inability to acknowledge the root cause of what's afflicting America is, in my opinion, the biggest dereliction of duty, because we know the left is insane. So if they're not going to do it, who's going to do it? Who is supposed to be the responsible, objective, pragmatic taskmasters that say, no, instead of democratic socialism, which will probably suck, here's your viable alternative. And we see over and over again, they literally can't. So the healthcare situation is a perfect example. Obamacare happened. We knew it was going to suck. They ran on repealing Obamacare. They never did it. They fundraised off of repealing Obamacare. They never did it. And so we know we have these subsidies coming. We know it's going to be a fight. They have months to deal with it. They spend hundreds of millions a year on conservative think tanks on health policy, right? We have a lot of big brains working on that. And the Republican solution to healthcare is Trump negotiating an MFN, which will probably reduce healthcare prices 3%. Healthcare expenditures. But healthcare expenditures, the government subsidized portion of healthcare expenditures, like 10% of our GDP or something ridiculous like that. So we're talking about a very, very, very small amount. And then the Republican legislative response, because these subsidies are a wealth transfer, right? They tax people and then they give those taxes to other people. Well, the Republican answer was also a wealth transfer. It's like, okay, we're still going to tax people and give it to other people. But instead of putting that money directly attached to your plan in the marketplace, we're just going to dump it in a bank account that's held at JP Morgan. Like that was the responsible side's answer to healthcare costs. And it's like, what about, no, we got to fire the entire managerial class that's strangling healthcare. We got to break up the regulatory capture. We have to hold these companies accountable for killing people, so that they actually have studies that show efficacy and safety, like correctly, right? Like all of these things that we know that if you or I were Franco in charge of the entire healthcare industry, like I could fix that problem. It's not that hard. You don't need to be, I don't think you really need to be a policy wonk to know that like we probably shouldn't throttle the supply of doctors. Like that's probably a bad idea. And maybe everything doesn't need to be a super expensive pharmaceutical drug that is barely effective at all. Like the number on remdesivir is like, wow, the polling, we poll on remdesivir, which cost, I don't know, 20, 30, 40,000. It was rushed through. It never had really safety trials, so to speak. And the efficacy was never that high, I think. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But of the people who said they had a person die in the hospital of COVID, people thought that hospital protocols were complicit, 47% to 36%. So America knows it. It's like these pharmaceutical companies kill people. We're like nothing, not even a acknowledgement. Like, I guess it's good we're not going to have red dye number 40 or whatever, but we're all going to die because we're fighting a civil war because healthcare took about 20 trillion of our 38 trillion. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, what are we doing? The same thing you see like poignantly in like the UK or Europe, where they have a more formalized system, but it's like the entire state is being absorbed into a pension program, and that becomes the point of England is the NHS or whatever alternative systems are. And it's like, look, man, like that is a real possibility, and it seems as if the way we're going to do that is not through nationalized system.
Yeah.
But it basically comes out to the same thing. Like one of the few areas of growth, particularly in like flyover America, is medical systems, right? Is, whether you go to, hospice, which is one of the few areas that a lot of hospital chains make money. And like, if you know a little bit about this, I, worked in this industry, but effectively the combination of retirement homes and hospice are explicitly designed to reduce your net worth to zero by the end of your life, to completely take that from your family, redistribute it to that system. At which point it's like, well, even if people don't know that particularly, they see it. They see that, grandma died penniless. They see that, an entire generation of wealth just got absorbed into.
How are you involved in the industry? That interests me because that's perverse. Because this generational wealth that the boomers received, that theoretically they should be passing on to their children, is going to be harvested by corporations.
I won't say I worked for a medical company that provided, I'm being very vague here for obvious reasons,
sure,
but specific medical equipment. Oftentimes, I mean, you could very easily end up with it, but a lot of it was at nursing homes, or you'd see people who were at nursing homes or hospice, and you're like, I mean, not to be grim, but it's like, hey, look, like if you've really got 3 weeks to live, why are we running a heart test on you? Like, I don't want to be rude here, but like, right. We know the prognosis. And then between that and knowing other people who worked in that industry, you see that. Like, I can't say that, but there have been instances where a medical group connected to a hospital will get in trouble for fraud. And admittedly, this is caught within the system, but it's oftentimes not. Particularly in areas like oncology and hospice, where they are deliberately funneling people into those programs because they're incredibly expensive and they can collect a lot of money. And so they will funnel someone who could have lived another 3 or 4 years onto hospice so they can take that and siphon it up. That is all alleged. Yeah. It's not.
Oh, and kill them.
Yeah, literally. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, well, that is creating an immense amount of anger. And when, look, even Curtis Yarvin, of all people, was talking about this, what I thought was interesting. But he was talking about the fact that, healthcare has sort of reached this point where even in his wealthy San Francisco bubble, large portions of people are simply making a bet, simply saying, well, I can't afford this, so I'll just roll the dice and hope that nothing happens.
Yeah.
And again,
those are the people that have to pay for the end of life care for boomers. They're subsidizing boomers. Everything's about that freaking generation. And we haven't even seen the full wave, in my opinion, of chronic chemotherapy, of the diabetes, like end of life care, of all of the hospice, of all the insurance money that's going to go to the boomer generation. So they literally strip mine the economy, and they're going to give us a big middle finger on the way out. And already healthcare is like the biggest employer in almost every state now. But what blows my mind is like, look back at the absolute state of Americans. Like building the freaking Continental Railroad, right? Like freaking terraforming the West, the wilderness. And I look at pictures of the Chicago Columbian Exposition of 1893 and just look at it and say that was America. Like that Ferris wheel they built, like those vast Greco-Roman columns, this amazing thing they put together in like 6 months and whatever it is. And now we're saying as Americans, we can't step into the healthcare industry and immediately spot the misalignment of pricing incentives that are causing this. Why do we not? Why can we send a man on the moon, but we can't immediately say, well, wait a minute, they can order all these expensive tests whenever they want. And we have Medicare codes for things that aren't going to change anybody's life, but it's the gold standard because somebody took a bribe. Is this really what's going to kill us? And it is. If we had capped, I had Grok run this, if we had capped Medicare and Medicaid at a % of GDP in 1970 and just kept it there, then we would have, I think it was 21 trillion less in debt. Might have been 19, sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's it. The dollar is going to die. The American reserve currency status is eventually going to go away. And it was because we promised too much healthcare to people that didn't even work so that doctors could drive Mercedes.
Yeah. And I mean, it's killing doctors as well, right? Like the bizarre push and pull has created the system where doctors are also punished for hyperproductivity. There's a person I know quite well who's literally been fired for doing too much because it's not billable, right? We don't care about what you do functionally. What we care about is RVUs. What we care about is billable codes.